Hi friends, thanks for joining me for this video on extending multiplication with concrete pictorial abstract representations. We're specifically focusing on when the work of multiplication moves in grade 3 to factors 6 through 9 and thinking about representing the distributive property. Our goals for this video is to really focus in on a concrete pictorial abstract progression that's going to support students understanding these grade 3 multiplication concepts. We also really want to think about how, as teachers, we can help students make explicit connections between multiple representations. One of the best tools when we start working on multiplication is skip counting for students. Skip counting fluency really can help support multiplication understanding because if our students can skip count, it frees up some of the brain power as they start to build fluency with their basic multiplication facts. The best way to learn skip counting is repeated practice, especially with music. Anchor charts are a really great tool to help the students who are still struggling a little bit with addition and subtraction, maybe some number sense, and multiplication. As we move to these larger factors, creating an anchor chart together can help ground students' skip counting with a visual so that they're connecting meaning to that skip count that they're learning. For example, I've included an image here. This anchor chart might be one that I create with students. As I create it, we're going to draw the circles and record the skip count. So for example, we're making skip counts by 6. We could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll write the 6 at the end of that row. Then we count on. Another 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're going to record that number for our skip count at the end of the row. This process will help students connect the act of skip counting to counting individual objects or a one-to-one count. And it also will help connect skip counts to arrays, which is another representation we need students to leverage in order to focus on our work with the distributive property and connect multiplication to area. So let's think about a concrete pictorial abstract progression for the distributive property. One of the things is language. So when we hear 7 times 4, a lot of students need support in differentiating how is that different from 7 plus 4. So one of the ways we can do that is unit form. 7 times 4 might mean we have 7 4s. It also might mean we have 7 groups of 4. When we think about some of the larger factors, when we move on to factors 6 through 9, it also means that we might use the parts of our 7 4s to help us find the total for 7 4s. In this image, you see 7 4s is broken up into 5 4s and 2 4s. I like using Unifix cubes with smooth sides for these kinds of representations because I can draw on them with dry erase markers. So in this image, I've used 7 cubes, 1 cube for each group, and I've put 4 dots on each cube representing the 4 items in each of those equal groups. I can involve students in moving from a very concrete representation of those 7 groups of 4 to a slightly more abstract version. What I have students do is count the number of dots on each cube and then erase the dots and replace it with a number that represents that quantity. So the student has counted the 4 dots, erased them, and replaced it with a number 4. When they're done with this process, hopefully students are connecting the fact that each one of those 4s represents a set of 4, or an equal group of 4. Let's think about a big picture progression, concrete to pictorial to abstract. For 7 groups of 4 is 28. I can start with my 7 groups of 4, 1 cube for each group. I want to transition from seeing the individual dots to representing each group of 4 with just the number 4. This could connect to repeated addition if I needed to. I can also connect this to my skip count where I say 1, 2, 3, 4 and write 4 for that first group of 4. 5, 6, 7, 8 and write 8 when I add in my second group of 4. And I can complete this process. After I've created that anchor chart and we've used it lots of different ways, when we're working with the distributive property, I add a line to show that group of 5 4s. This connects that number bond image to the skip count or the cubes. It could be the cubes with the dots. It also could be the cubes with the 4. The idea is that I'm labeling the parts that I have broken 7 groups of 4 into. 5 groups of 4, 5 4s, or 5 times 4. So in addition to concrete pictorial abstract representation, I'm also connecting lots of representations for the language describing what they see. Finally, I might remove the pictures or objects and think about 7 times 4 equals 28 as a number bond broken up into the parts of 5 4s and 2 4s, and I've included that abstract notation. The final step in our concrete pictorial abstract progression for students in grade 3 is to arrive at this equation. So students need to understand that 7 times 4 is equal to the product of 5 times 4 plus the product of 2 times 4. And no matter how I write it, it equals 28. In summary, we need to make sure that our students in 3rd grade who are still working on counting and adding and subtracting have the opportunity to do so even when we're working with some of these larger factors of multiplication. Second, to keep ensuring that we ground our multiplication experiences for students in groups of language so that they're connecting the meaning with the symbols. We need to involve students in the transition from one representation to another. They're either going to participate in creating the new representation, or they need to have a conversation as we introduce a new representation to how it is the same and different from the one that went before it. Finally, as we process these different representations, create anchor charts with your students. Help them make explicit connections between multiple representations by showing them next to each other in a way that students can refer back to it. Thanks for joining me for this video on multiplication as we extend to some bigger factors and dig into distributive property. For more videos and resources, check out the website pima.edu.com.